Hey guys, I'm Comire, this is kinda messy, you're watching Start and Select and I just watched Pixels. So you may have heard of this film where aliens bring back retro video games, but not in a good way. It's being called everything by the critics, everything from a terrible punishment to what I can only assume is a vivid description of a murder at a gynecology clinic. Now, I'm not a film critic and this video shouldn't be considered a review, but Pixels has more problems than the amount of fat jokes Adam Sandler needs before he thinks his own films are funny. And to be honest, so do video game movies in general, so rather than just bash it, let's use it as a learning point and think of a couple ideas that might help video game movies, be good. Now, I'll be honest, Pixels isn't a terrible film. It's not a good film, but the critical opinion of it might blind you from what it's trying to do. It works enough as a feature-length homage to the short film that inspired it, and by the way, head over to Compulsive Squad, type in Pixels in the search bar. I posted that film in the first week I made that blog in 2012, thank you very much. But the movie's huge visuals are impressive, and it is entertaining enough to not want to be waterboarded with bamboo sticks inside your fingernails. That's just silly, Marco G. Sadly, those are all the nice things I can say about Pixels, really. I mean, other than an awesome as always Peter Dinklage, it's a very unfunny film. Some jokes got a laugh, but between the lack of comic timing and Adam Sandler's miserable face throughout the film and the press junkets, you get the feeling Pixels just doesn't care if you're having a good time. Like, there's a scene close to the beginning where Adam Sandler abuses Michelle Monaghan, who plays a single mum going through a separation. Now, I like Insulting the Newly Divorced as much as the next guy, but that scene had all the humour of a seance at an abortion clinic. There was a weird thing in most of the indoor scenes in Pixels. For some reason, there was no background music. In a video game, even if there aren't guns going off everywhere and people screaming that they slept with your mum, you're rarely playing in silence. Old school video games are some of the most memorable tunes in history, and modern video games have more tracks in them than Lindsay Lohan's arms, so films like Pixel should be using them to inform the emotional tone of their scenes, and not just resorting to 8-bit chiptunes to remind us of watching a video game movie. The Ratchet & Clank games feature a lot of cool sci-fi orchestral music, and if the upcoming film didn't use that, it would be more questionable than Kevin James's presidential campaign. And speaking of questions, here are a few I had after watching Pixels. Cue jump cuts. Why does Cupid stick around but Duck Hunt Dog doesn't? Why did the fictional woman that Josh Gad had been pining for suddenly find him irresistible? Why does Cupid later become that woman? I mean, even the characters are like WTF. That angry colonel that starts off as a joke on the why don't we just bomb them mentality in America, but then starts to become like an antagonist because he really doesn't like the gamers, but then he never really actually does anything. Actually, why does the military help in the first act, but then nowhere to be seen in the final battle? So let me get this right. There was no reset button. I mean, I thought it was going to be the big saviour, but apparently Pixels isn't even predictable enough to be predictable. The guy that played a young Peter Dinklage, I mean, was he a dwarf or a child dwarf? I mean, no offence, I just don't know. Why doesn't the President's First Lady not say a thing for the first 75 minutes of the film? I mean, she clearly ain't no Michelle. Why does the President have more social engagements than George R.R. Martin? He clearly ain't no Obama. And what's Ed Stark doing here? And how does it matter? If a production studio puts too much into giving a video game story a real-world context just to make it more understandable for the mass market, you might end up doing more harm than good. You open your film up to the possibility of plot holes or doing something untrue to the source material. And you can't have that. Video game fans are the most neurotic, analytical people on the planet. They will raise on nothing but internet and Mountain Dew. If you mess up their film, you will know about it. So with a video game movie, I think your best bet is to bring in the original creators to create something new. For example, Ubisoft know the character traits on the world of Assassin's Creed a lot better than Sony Pictures, so when that film eventually gets here, we'll see a film where nothing is true and everything is permitted. Everything except the dancing Tobey Maguire, that is. And that leads me to my next point, establish the rules of the world we're in. You see, Pixels has this bit about a cheat code, but never really explains how it's entered, so apparently you're supposed to assume that Josh Gad pulls out his phone, can type in Justin Bailey, and he'll be suddenly wearing a one-piece swimsuit. The team also flick between being the good guys in Centipede to being the ghosts in Pac-Man to, well, technically nothing during Breakout. It's the worst case of moral schizophrenia since Tyrion Lannister had that moment at the end of season 4. Just, if you're blending real life and video games, give the film some parameters and let your characters explore. That's all you need to do. Pixels is pretty lazy in that regard. Michelle Monaghan talked about light energy and Adam Sandler screamed on and on about seeing the patterns, but it was all still pretty messy. There's a Minecraft movie in development that needs to establish a world that's moldable and show an adventure that focuses on harvesting resources out of anything. And if it's anything like the game, there'll need to be endless possibilities. And literally seeing the game perspective in a film would help too. I mean, filmmakers should use the over-the-shoulder third-person perspective or the side-on perspective that games employ. I mean, those shots were made so that you'd have all the information necessary to move forward, rather than the shaky camera cuts you see in films just to keep them interesting. Let's Plays can be really engaging because you can see a guard's leg disappear around a corner, or you can hear the sound of a gun being reloaded, and you can use that information to mentally decide yourself how you'd go about it, and then also see how the Let's Play would do it themselves. If a future movie like the Uncharted movie added those details, then it could be really special. I mean, it's too late for Pixels. Right now, Pixels is to Wreck-It Ralph what Fantastic Four is to The Incredibles, or Jack and Jill was to getting into a mud wrestle with a post-op transsexual. Even though it might be cool to see video game characters explode into 9,000 little tesseracts, Pixels is not the love letter to games that it should be. The jokes are hit and miss, the interpretations weren't clever or creative. It's like having a weird uncle stumble around your living room telling you why music is so much better in his day. To grossly paraphrase Kanye West, Adam Sandler does not care about gaming people. So any future video game movies, take note. If at any point in production it becomes a good decision to cast Kevin James as President of the United States, burn everything and start again. So as ever, leave me a comment or check me out on Twitter. I've been Comire, that's some nice screen resolution. This has been Silent Select, thank you, and good night. What's Ed Stark doing here? And how does he manage to not die in the film for once? Yeah, I know, sorry, that was a spoiler. And now I'm going to do some fancy art moves to make it seem like it was more important than it actually was.